That's very true. We're going to find out what's happening in game number 1 as we head on to Golden Aura. We're going to be starting at the top left-hand side of the map. Top of the red, Terran player. He is your world champion. He is Oliveira.
And at the bottom right here, in the blue, the reigning GSL champion, it's Solar.
Now, which one of these players is going to get a nice little Christmas bonus to pad their earnings for 2023 with? I think both of them have been doing pretty well for themselves in this overall year of StarCraft and everything, but I think a result would mean actually a lot for both of these players at this event.
Yeah, absolutely. And the crazy thing about this as well is, I'm not going to say that this feels like the qualifying match to the round of 8, because Dark is a terrifying opponent. But I feel like either of these players actually matches up fairly nicely against that Dark in the upper bracket semis.
Oh man, I'm just so afraid. Anytime that Dark goes up against any other player, I'm always like so afraid. Solar, you're right. Solar is the player who has CVC good enough to take on players like Cyril, but Dark is just this weird unknown quantity. I don't even know how really to evaluate how someone will do versus him.
Yeah, especially in a LAN environment, especially here is Dark, by the way, saying, I'm the #1 player in the world, the only one. Everyone else says Cyril. So he's feeling good, but I want to talk about this game a little bit because the meta recently, right, been 2 racks expands, things of that nature, and we've started to see Zerg players go for this 15-15, a gas cancel hatch, gas cancel pool. You get queens out earlier, you get creep out a little bit faster, it keeps you safe. Solar went for that. And Oliveira is just playing a very standard Reaper expand, getting as greedy as possible. Well, I guess you could CC first, but as greedy as is reasonable, going into the mid game. And Solar, well, you get into Roach play a little bit faster sometimes, but it's a little less greedy.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we are going to see a situation where these players are just going to be opening up with, like you said, with a very normal kind of openings and everything, but in my mind, I feel like Solar has been one of those players that when it comes to the early game stages of events, that is truly where Solar has always traditionally shined. And I think it's because he's very solid in that kind of early game. He doesn't really tend to take a ton of damage. He does a nice job scouting. He's just generally a pretty smart player when it comes to scouting at his opponent and reacting. It's not quite exactly like the same way Cyril does, but in a similar-ish vein, Solar is just a very solid player when it comes to early game of events. So I want to know, what is Oliveira throwing at him and how is Solar reacting?
Yeah, and the other thing we got to track here as well when we talk about these openings and how you're going to play, the bailing was nerfed about a month ago. No longer does centrifugal hooks mean that you get +5 HP. Players have been complaining about it, but it has meant that we're seeing more Roach openers, more Infestor openers, Hydraling, and then into Hydraling Bane and all this. Yeah. The story of a ZVT has changed a little bit. And for a player like Solar, I don't think of him as an Infestor player. Hydraling Bane, absolutely, but I don't think of him as a Lurker player as much, and certainly not as a Roach player. So it's going to be interesting to see here as well. Yeah, he won the GSL on that patch, but the meta wasn't quite as developed then.
That is very true. As we have seen today, that the meta is continuing to develop in all sorts of ways on the current balance patch. So yeah, it'll be fun to see exactly what Solar decides to commit to. I do think he's a pretty versatile player and can kind of throw up whatever he needs to against what his opponent is throwing out at him. And so far, we're not seeing any Cyclones or anything in the opening. We're actually just seeing a couple of Hellions being made, moving across the map. I mean, this is like the old school TVZ meta as well. And I don't hate it. This is something that Oliveira's quite good at as well.
Yeah, it's stock standard. If you want to find a way, you want to get comfortable in a series, do the stock standard. Reaper expand, 1-1-1, Hellion, Banshee, Hellion Viking, as it was Hellion Viking this time. Although, look at this. This is going to be a really powerful Hellbat timings of what it looks like. Concussive Shells on the way, adding in Widow Mines as well. This is interesting coming out of Oliveira.
Oh, yeah, gonna get super duper aggressive as we do see, of course, their first person perspectives. I actually think something that a lot of people kind of sleep on is how fast of a player also Oliveira is. Whenever you see his first person perspective, it's like, oh, wait, I kind of understand why he was able to win IM Katowice. He's actually really fast. He's really mechanically strong, I think.
Yeah, certainly. Now, the interesting, I'm looking at this, right? And there's a third base on the way, but you're looking at this, okay, Concussive Shells, first upgrade. That almost always means Hellbat play. But there's no armory. He's building into Widow Mines. He's going for this medevac push with no Hellbats, but Concussive Shells. This is new, Fear Dragon. This is a little weird.
Well, interesting to see where it's going to go ahead and develop from here. But yeah, just Stim going to be added on. We got a drop coming in over here. What's in the drop? Widow Mines, right? Yeah. Got some Widow Mines heading on into that third base. Let's see how much damage they can get done. Solar is all on top of this, though. Look at that very quick reaction. The medevac goes down. Barely any drones end up falling. A Queen soaks up one of the Widow Mine hits. I mean, that's pretty much one of the best kind of reactions you can ask for from Solar.
Yeah, and going back to the concussive shells, but I think that's just a mistake, actually. I'm looking at this, and there are no Marauders on the map. He hasn't built a single one.
Did he let it finish?
Did he? Yeah,
okay.
It's done. So Oliveira spending a little gas where he doesn't want to, slowing down Stim just a little bit. Who knows? This might be getting ready for some sort of heavier Marauder play early on, but I still think you want Stim first. So
what's his tech lab count at right now? It's still just the
one on the barracks, yeah.
All right, I'm siding with you that in my mind that's probably not the most intentional of decisions. So, but you know, thankfully at least concussive shells, it's not the most expensive upgrade, and it's also one of the faster upgrades. So I feel like hopefully this won't be something that's going to be too big of an impact for him.
Yeah, worst comes to worst, Solar never realizes what happened. The game goes on, and you're probably fine. But look at this wall coming down. This is Golden Aura. This is why defensive players really like it. It is so hard to attack into someone on this map. And, well, three Raxes as your wall, it's a little hard for a Zerg to break through that.
No, absolutely. It makes it a lot simpler just because as Oliveira, you really just have to worry about one kind of positioning angle. The Siege Tanks even are able to cover a bit of the barracks by going to the southern side by the third base where you're actually trying to defend. And they kind of naturally just protect your barracks anyway. So your wall is there. It's really, really difficult to break in through. So now you just think about, okay, there's one angle I have to worry about.
And the cool thing about this as well, this is barracks 6, 7, 8. This is an 8 Rax. Okay, this is an 8 Rax coming out of Oliveira right now. He's leaning into that Clem ID. I don't think he gets add-ons on these barracks. They're exposed. The Link run by kills them all. But instead, you're right, you have one pushing opportunity. You're gonna find your way through the bottom side, hitting with that very quick 8 Rax. And again, this is Oliveira playing maybe a little bit differently. Now, Solar, he's getting ready to go to the Hive. Infestation Pit's down. He's got 2-2 on the way. The question, though, and this is Lingbane, so unlikely, do you fold those infestors in? It's a lot of gas, but you get 1 or 2 good fungals. Things very much change.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely later on we can start to think about that, but for now I think he's just going to be thinking about this push that's at his front door. A couple of Banelings are being morphed very, very close to this army as it looks like they're potentially going to get sniped off. 1 or 2 of them does go down, but for now, Solar's holding the line on the edge of creep.
Yeah, we talk about how you defend an 8 Rax, right? It's going to be with a big run by. You force the Terran back, you force him into a bad fight. But Solar can't do that. There's a ton of HP in that wall, so instead, he is looking for the wraparound right here, but he's not going to pull the trigger, looking for reinforcements instead for the moment. And that means that Oliveira can find himself a powerful seized up position outside of the 4th base, outside of the 3rd base of Solar. But Solar, despite the wall, Ravi, he finds his way in, and this is a lot of damage. Now suddenly Oliveira, he has to get so much done with this push.
Oh, he definitely needs to get a good bit done, but remember, that's also a lot of army supply that Solar is invested on the other side of the map, so can Oliveira take advantage of this opportunity? A couple of the Banelings also getting forced to cancel there, but there's still actually quite a few Banelings over here for Solar. He loses one of the bases, loses 24 workers, evacuating out of this other location. Can Solar actually hold here? Because he's getting a lot of damage, like you said, on the other side of the map.
Solar's just buying time here. 2-2 is done in about 15 seconds, and that is absolutely where Solar wants to take the fight, but he's gonna go early. He thinks he can make it happen right now. The tanks hold on the backside, and now Oliveira, the army's still here. Baneling Nest will fall, and all of a sudden,
yeah, suddenly you can't make any more Banelings. 2-2 is going to finish up, but so many of the Banelings have already been utilized at this point. Solar's in a lot of trouble. He has to be super conservative. I don't even think he realized the Baneling Nest fell because he hasn't been remaking. He's just focused on this fight. I don't blame him for that because this is an important fight. And if he's able to get a cleanup here, it maybe ends up being a bit better, and that's it. He does it.
Absolutely. 22 Banes, that's all he had to work with, Ravi. And 22 Banelings was all that he required. Oliveira, economy shattered, 40 SCVs down. But hey, he had a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, really well done there. I mean, I was getting a little bit scared there because you see this player who's like, okay, if you don't clean this up entirely, you don't really have a lot of ways to like remake this army. You can't really take a second fight with those Banelings because they just won't be there.
Absolutely. It's crazy. I got to question Solar's decision to take the fight about 5 seconds before 2-2. I don't think that was the play. Like, you think you're ready, maybe, I don't know. Or maybe you're a little bit too afraid of the attack getting an even better sieged up position. Maybe he saw some tanks unsieged, I don't know. But at the end of the day, it did work out. At the end of the day, we did see Oliveira. He was broken on the second attempt. And it looked bad, actually, when Solar was taking that fight. I was watching the tanks in this fight, and it felt like one more tank volley, all the banelings are dead, or the majority of them. And then maybe Oliveira can kite out, and who knows?
Yeah, really, really chaotic game there toward the end, especially because I think you were pointing this out earlier, Bamel, but like having the run bys to try and buy time, Oliveira was able to get all that damage done because he effectively just ignored the run by, took the damage. But oftentimes you see Terran players that are maybe pulling back and kind of being a little bit wishy-washier, so I love that kind of decision-making from Solar. The fact that he was able to get that run-by in was absolutely massive for his ability to actually defend that push, because otherwise, if you don't get that run-by in, and even if you manage to crush that push a little bit more one-sidedly, Solar is still losing a lot in the process.
Absolutely, but now we got a reigning world champion in the bottom left side wanting to send us to Game 3 for Dragon Kites of Gaming. It's Oliveira.
And up here on the top right-hand side of the map, we have our blue Zerg player from Onside Gaming. He is Solar.
And you know, Fear Dragon, you talk about that run by finding value. It was all down to one supply depot not placed perfectly. He didn't have to bust through. He didn't have to spend any lings, didn't have to spend any banes to get through. They just did what the lings do, and they wiggle around and ended the game.
Isn't that always like one of the best feelings in the world? It's like when you see the lings running, you're like, oh, three-dimensional game. I thought that this was a full wall, but it in fact was not.
You know, as a Zerg player, absolutely. I love my run by find their way through.
Yeah, my absolute favorite is when you think that as a Protoss player, your wall is a unit, and the unit is just very slightly out of position. Always a little bit tough, but I mean, this is the kind of thing that I think I really appreciate about the top level players, is that it's not just that, you know, their openings are presenting themselves and they're taking advantage of it. It's that they're fine. They always pressure and they always look for those openings. That's what really sets a lot of the absolute top players apart, is how often and how consistently they check for those. Because yeah, maybe your opponent makes a mistake, but are you there to capitalize on it? And Solar absolutely was.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, well, I'm not going to say almost, the default response to an 8-Rax, especially when you have timings, send half your army onto the other, a third of your army to the other side of the map, force the Terran back, catch reinforcements, get a run by, because you know that 8-Rax timing, when they have 1-1, they got their tanks, they're really pumping their units, you can't take the fight, you got to buy time, you got to give up position until your timings are ready. And Solar, he just happened to end the game with it, instead of slowing things down and making something happen. But, Fear Dragon, this is another day, it's another map, we're now on Alcyone. And this is a map where I really don't like those 8-Rax ideas. You give the Zerg player is going to take the triangle as their third. It's a ready-made surround whenever the Terran gets close.
Yeah, I think you were talking about this actually on the last map as well. Being able to wall off one of the attack paths so that basically you were defending one location with your 3-base setup definitely makes things a lot easier compared to some of the other maps that are in the map pool. So yeah, I'm definitely with you there. It is going to be cool to see what Oliveira actually decides to throw out at Solar here in game number 2, just because I do think he is a player that is capable of some nice kind of diversity with his builders. And even if you go back all the way to his Katowice run, like, he was throwing out a lot of different kind of things and just backing it up with really great mechanical execution.
Well, it helped that he was a Tavarine as well. You know, fate was bending around him to make that happen.
That is true. Yeah.
I mean, he played incredibly well, and let's take nothing away from him, but it was wild just watching how the long arc of fate just seems, yeah, Oliveira, you're going to win this tournament. Everything's going to go perfectly.
The plot armor.
He had plot armor, dude.
Yeah. Now, we do see double Cyclones coming out over here for Oliveira. We'll see when he decides to stop. Of course, he does still have, you know, command center and stuff popping on down. Tech lab also coming up, I think probably on that barracks or something right now. But so nothing as memeing as I would say, as we've seen earlier today from some of the Terran players just yet. But, you know, always fun to see what those first 2 Cyclones can get done.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the Cure approach, right? Where you build 4 Cyclones, you build some Hellions, it can snipe a Queen, that's really nice, you get an Overlord or something, but it's map control. And again, this is Oliveira. It was a factory 3rd base, so it's not the quickest possible 3rd CC, but it's pretty dang close. And again, this is a map that, well, pushing as a Terran is always a little scary. You have the ready-made concave, there are run-bys possible. Once the game starts to go a little bit later, this does become a little bit harder for Zergs. It's not exactly their favorite map.
Yeah, almost gets a pick off on that Queen. It was actually very nicely done, especially with the Reaper pop-up grenade. Knocked that Queen around and made it harder for it to run away. Almost snipes off a second Queen, but not actually getting either one of them.
I mean, importantly now, energy has to be spent on transfuses or the Queens are just going to sit low, and there are 2 more Cyclones on the way. They're not joined up just yet, but at least, unless, yeah, 4 Cyclones on the map, so even if that didn't find value, didn't kill something, the 4 Cyclones, they're maybe going to get a little bit more. And in fact, we talk about the Cure build. He's not going to build a single L8. He's very happy with his 4 Cyclones, killing everything that come at them.
Yeah, I think that's actually one of the most powerful things that people have been finding about these Cyclones is that they actually, just because there's no dead time with the lock-on for the current iteration of the Cyclone, you really don't have to worry as much about, oh, locking onto Lings, I killed 1 Ling and then I'm just waiting around. Really can deal with them a lot better.
Certainly, but this Ling run-by is a problem right now. I don't think there's a lot of Marines in the natural. First of all, Oliveira is not aware of it. It's 2 Cyclones. That's it, that show. I think there's maybe another on the high ground. There's nothing here, not easily, but there's the Rampant Lings are going to have to back up for now. I think if Solar just dives into the natural, he's going to get a couple SCVs, but you get a little bit too big for your britches there. Your eyes get a little bit too full. You want the whole burger, and, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to throw away all these Lings right now.
Yeah.
That, of course, is your security blanket to make sure that the opponent can't just move across the map and get some damage done. So it's going to back off with those, add on his Baneling Nest, add on a bunch of drones, and Solar's going to be sitting, you know, a little bit prettier for a bit. He knows that there's not too much pressure headed his way until at least medevacs or something pop on out, and that's still going to be another minute or so out at least.
You know, Ravi, Cyclones may be the or the Lings may be the Zerg security blanket, but you're my security blanket.
Thank you. I'm glad I could be there for you, Bill.
I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. But third base on the way here, on location for Oliveira, and because of that Ling run by in part, the creep spread has not been quite as curtailed as you might otherwise like to see. The Queen didn't go down, so energy's fine there. And now, 6 minutes in, we're about halfway onto the other side of the map. Now, the big deal is if you can get creep on the Xel'Naga tower, if you can prevent the Terran from just holding that spot and saying, I'm sorry, the line of sight blocker's a little broken. You can't move through here.
No, controlling the Xel'Naga Watchtower on this map is actually really big. And it's something that I think some players have talked a little bit about, where the Xel'Naga Watchtowers in the smack dab center, or even like close to the center, I think it became a little bit less popular, a lot of the map designs and stuff. So this is one of the more interesting maps to me in that regard, where we do finally have a kind of return of really, really powerfully located Xel'Naga Watchtower in the center, where you really can get a lot of vision, smack dab in the center, gives you a big advantage.
You know, I talked about this as well. I said, you know what, I don't think we're going to see an 8 Rex here. It feels like it's a 4-base type of map. The pushing through the middle is kind of hard when you get that ready-made surround. Oliveira, 6, 7, 8. We're ready to go here. 2-2 on the way. If at first you don't succeed in game 1, try again, Ravi.
Well, he's going to need to knock out as much of this creep threat as possible. He's finding all of the active creep tumors, finding another round of the passive creep tumors. These Banelings don't even have speed just yet, so the Marines managed to all evacuate out of there very, very safely. Queen's going to need to be on that creep respreading ASAP because, yeah, with 2-2, once that finishes up, this attack is going to get pretty scary.
Yeah, the one tricky thing about this is Oliveira hasn't opened up the right side for him, so as we see the 5th base get taken for Solar, that's a little hard to push, and for now, Lings, they're going to get us around. They're going to force things back. Problem is Solar, Infestation Pit on the way. He's got it's Hydra Ling Bane, not just Ling Bane. He's getting all these bases. He's on 83 workers, and that's a lot of stuff. And 8-Rax is about to hit very quickly. The good news for Solar, though, is this has not been the 1-1 8-Rax. The heavy, we're going to hit it 130, 150 supply. Oliveira's looking at a max out. He's looking at that 2-2 timing where he hits with like a sledgehammer with a ton of bio and tons of reinforcements.
No, absolutely. It's going to be a very scary push out, and I like that he's even moving out just a little bit early because he wants to hit around his opponent's face when 2-2 finishes up. You have to be a bit careful not to take the engagement too quickly, but as long as you're able to kind of clear a little bit of that creep straight and not force the engagement too early on, it can set itself up really nicely. But here we go, another one of these run-bys getting set up from Solar.
Yeah, now, and well, there are Marines on the other side, but the Banelings are going to bust through. Tank, though, deals with a lot of these Banelings, and here comes Oliveira on the north side. Banelings will get canceled for now. I think he's got to target him down, gets the last of them. There we go. And now there are very few Banelings in this army. They get good connections. Even still, Ravi, this base will fall. On the other side, that run by 14 dead SCVs, tanks, and in the main, we're in it. It's game 1, part 2. You got to make this push happen, Oliveira.
Yeah, but Solar, feels like he has a lot less stuff compared to game number 1. Can he actually hold against his army? Yes, he's also getting a lot of damage done on the other side of the map, but it's mostly just because these few Lings are picking off reinforcements as they pop out, but Stim Marines will eventually clean this up.
And importantly as well, Oliveira hit with his timing before 2-2 was done for Solar. Now it's ready. Now there's Hydra speed. Now 2-2 is done on the Lings and the Banes. This next fight is going to be a little easier for him, but Oliveira, he's up 20 army supply. He's got this really nice sieged up position, and again, the Baneling Nest is gone.
Yeah, that's going to be really painful. Baneling Nest is already, another one is halfway done. Oliveira now stalled out over here. He hasn't quite been able to close in on any of these other bases, but it feels like his army is stronger compared to last game. He's still sitting up a bit of army supply. And Solar, this is the thing, he doesn't have to be as impatient as the last game because he's not sitting down on 2 bases that are barely mining. He's sitting on a situation where he still is mining. The scary thing here is that he didn't get nearly as much counter damage done.
Yeah, well, on the flip side, it feels like Oliveira's not necessarily given up on this, but understands that this might not end the game. He's got +3 armor on the way, pulling a Beyond, no +3 attack just yet. But he is going later, which is rough because he's only got 52 SCVs. There's no 4th base. And you're right, he stalled out here. This is not Golden Aura. You don't have easy chokes once you break this base. You move in, it's the open field. Ling Bane in the open field, Ravi. That's not an easy thing.
Reinforcements have arrived for Oliveira, but I think that Solar should be set up. I imagine there's got to be some reinforcements coming in from the hatchery in the right-hand side as well. There is very much a possibility of a big surround to try and break through this, and Solar's gonna need to do it soon because his natural is now under siege.
Big deal here, Ravi. There's a Viper on the way. Viper on the map, getting energy. We have 2-2, about 20 Banes. That Viper should be everything. You're able to shut the tanks down. It's powerful, but every single time a Baneling goes down, it makes it a little easier for Oliveira. And here we go. Blinding Cloud number 1, 2. It's a massive one. 1 tank remains. And here comes the flank, but the splits are really good. And Oliveira's gonna try. In fact, all the Banelings are down. But the Hydra army, the Queens, you would think that's enough. The medevacs are all done. There's no healing anymore. But on the left side, here comes Oliveira. It doesn't seem like it's gonna be enough though. That's 2 Blinding Clouds. Even still, Oliveira, the rally is here. Queens though, Ravi. I think they're gonna do it.
Oh my god, those transfuses were so clutch, and being able to actually survive through that. The reinforcements for Oliveira coming on the left-hand side maybe seemed like they were gonna turn the tide, but didn't quite manage to do it. And Oliveira really needed to get something done over there because Solar, he managed to defend his natural, he managed to defend all the other bases that are on the outskirts. Oliveira was very committed to making that attack happen. He's sitting there, and yes, he's got +3 armor on the way. I don't even know what happened to +3 weapons. I guess he maybe forgot it, or I don't know if he lost the engineering bay during the counterattack or something. But now it's a kind of awkward situation, especially since he's gonna get cleaned up yet again.
Yeah, the big deal here, yeah, Marines survive, but you lose your tanks. And that is by far the most important thing in this army. It's Hydraling Bane. You need that splash damage. That being said, this Liberator is doing work. 11 drones, no mining on the base. The economy is still bad, but at least it's a little closer.
It is going to be still a very tough uphill battle here, as Oliveira is going to be sending another army up to the top left. I like, actually, for Oliveira that creep spread, because all the Queens have just been at the front line the whole time, no real creep spread has actually happened up in the top left-hand side. So Oliveira can just get in right in on top of this base. Baneling's going to have to run off of creep to engage versus most of these Marines as soon as Oliveira inches even a tiny bit further forward. Oliveira can also cover his 4th base location by going for this attack.
And the nice thing about this as well, because he's Terran, he can lift his main on over to the 4th base, and by that time, again, the issue is he's got 3 tanks on the map. He's got 1 Liberator. He doesn't have a really good way of dealing with these masses of Hydras and the Lings and the Banes, especially without +3. But this Liberator, it's got 16 drone kills. It's if Oliveira comes back into this game and wins it, that Liberator's an MVP.
That Liberator's definitely been putting in some serious work there. Oliveira, I like that he's also trying to do a little bit of multi-prong aggression, get some medevacs out on the right-hand side, and do the kind of 2-prong attack, and make sure that Solar's a little bit split up. But Solar's also trying to complicate the game himself, trying to get run-bys in while he tries to go for the big breakthrough. And with that Blinding Cloud there, it seems like he's going to be enough to knock out the Siege tanks. Can he actually take on the Marines? Ooh, Marines getting really close to those Banelings.
They thought about it, but there's just not enough. Meanwhile, a lot of Queens are going to go down here, but the transfuses, you talked about them earlier, they're not going to get, there's no +3, right? They do not kill, they do not do enough damage fast enough, so a lot of energy done on the Queens, but Oliveira continues to not be able to push through. That being said, our supplies have equalized. It's actually up in the army supply a little bit for Oliveira. He's mining on that, can we call it a 4th base once again? But the Banelings explosive shots there, and the tanks aren't siege. So we talk about Oliveira coming back and the supplies being good. He just lost everything.
All of it just disappeared just in a second, and Oliveira still has some Marines on the bottom right-hand side. He's going to look for some drone snipes, but he lost so much army supply there. That was brutal to try and take as a loss there for Oliveira. Solar going to use those queens yet again to try and buy time on the right side. I really admire Solar's ability to both micro all of his lings and bailings on one engagement and to continuously get those transfuses out on the other side. He's basically microing both of the engagements at the same time.
And we're seeing why he's won a GSL, Ravi, especially against a Terran.
Turns out there's a good reason.
The trick also is because of all this attack play, and we're seeing the drops and everything, Oliveira was only on 5 medevacs, and they were all very out of energy, very low. He didn't, this multi-progging that he's trying to do now, if you don't have medevacs and you want 5 or 6 with your army, you don't have that. It becomes very hard to punish this economy. So now Solar, we're starting to see that big supply gap. 20 army supply from the bailing shots. He's up 15 workers, there's 13 workers, there we go. And this Ling run-bys, they're making it really hard. The Natural's gonna float over to the right side, but now it's gonna be so separate. The 4th base, that is an orbital, and the 5th, I guess we call it a 5th, that's on the right side. Those become extremely easy to run by.
Yeah. Nice cleanup there from Oliveira, is at least able to snipe all that stuff off. But yeah, it's kind of a funny position now because I kind of agree with what you're saying, but also, if you take a look at like what Solar's actually been up to with a lot of this game, he has been trying to make sure he can get up the defenses against all the random aggression for Oliveira. He hasn't really gotten up that much tech. He got up the 1 Viper, but he had Infestation. But I think maybe earlier there was a Lurker Den that got sniped off, but finally now, with 3-3 finishing up, he also has the Ultra Cavern being added on. So we didn't have Infestors, none of that other stuff early on. Now Solar's getting into his late game.
Yeah, but he's attacking before those Ultras are ready. Even still, the Blood and Clouds are beautiful, but, oh, the Blood and Cloud on the Marines! Even still, they run forward, and that's a lot of dead Banes. But we talked about this a minute ago. That base on the right side, how do you defend it if you're pushing on the left? It's just, it's not a planetary, there's no bunker here. You're just gonna lose economy, and Oliveira doesn't have economy to lose, but he's gonna try, and he's gonna snipe a ton of Banes before the Ultras are ready. And this base will fall here, Ravi. Oliveira still finding shots in this game.
A really, really big pickoff here, but he has to continue the momentum. The problem is, can he actually continue it? Chitinous plating is not finished up just yet. There is 1 Liberator, maybe 1 or 2 more, if he can actually get some of those out to help out. He is continuing to push into this other hatchery location. I mean, if he can get all the damage done before those Ultras are ready to take a fight, that is maybe Oliveira's opportunity to equalize this, but he's also has to avoid the damage on the other side of the map.
Oliveira's been all in for the last 15 minutes of this game, ever since that run by found value, but he's trying to find ways. SCVs are not gonna kill these Hydras, and in fact, the base, the orbital seems destined to fall. Is there a repair? He's gonna repair it, and the Hydras will fall. It's not enough yet, but at least the base is still there.
Yeah, dropping in the main base, the Ultras are able to clean up quite a few of those Marines, though, and that is gonna be enough. Solar eventually puts down Oliveira, takes the 2-0.